everybody, to Innovative Events Podcast. We've brought on with us again today Adam Courchaine from NewMed. Welcome.
I'm back for more.
Love it, love it. No, I just want to add, that was such nice scenery there, seeing people hiking and outside. Now, here in Colorado, we've been enjoying all of the fall leaves, and then surprisingly, we're already getting snow in our mountains.
Ooh, crazy.
Yeah, so I hope everybody's out enjoying before we hit winter. It's coming quickly.
It's like 2 days into fall, and we're already predicting winter coming soon.
Right? Oh, shoot. Okay, so let's kind of go back here into some of the prior episodes we had discussed. We've gone over quite a bit with the hormone replacement therapies and those differences between insurances and direct primary care. We've got, just an overall understanding. But Adam, do you mind kind of giving us a debrief of some of the things we've talked about, and then we can start diving into our topic today?
Sure. And I'll apologize. We have roofers on the house, so I was upstairs. They were banging. So I'm actually in my basement right now. Hopefully it sounds all right. So what we were trying to do is touch upon the idea of, do you want good enough medicine where you can be one of the flock, or do you want to be an individual? So we were talking about different things like when you go for a CBC blood test, is it good or is it good? There's a difference between those two. One is good enough and the other one's excellent. So from there, we went how to talk to your different medical providers and try to see if they're really being your best advocate, or again, checking boxes. So I can keep going on this stuff all day long, and I think we're going to do some of that today, but we have such good information, such good technology where we can actually demand better results out of our own health. So that's what we're going to do today.
All right, fantastic. Yep. So starting off with our topic, we've now hit episode 7. So I encourage all of you listeners, anybody stopping by, seeing us on YouTube, TikTok, any of our social platforms, we do have our prior episodes uploaded there. But today is episode 7, and we will be going over not sure if you need hormone replacement therapy. Here's what to look for. So starting with that, Adam, our first question is, how is hormone imbalance defined in medical terms versus in popular culture?
Okay, I like it. You're jumping right in. So I think the question implies two things. So medically, what is hormone imbalance? And the answer is, if you're out of the range, that's an imbalance. It's defined as being out of the range. When you look at your lab panel, when you get your results in, look to the right side, and it won't say healthy range. It'll say reference interval. So that's the range for humans. Sick humans with cancer, they go in the range. Humans with no reproductive organs, they go in the range. So if that's good enough for you, that's okay. But that's hormone imbalance. So whether we're talking about thyroid, diabetes, whatever, imbalance, hormone imbalance is out of the range. Now, the other one said popular culture. I think I might rephrase that and say from a functional standpoint. So from that, like let's say testosterone for a man, roughly for total testosterone, the range is 300 to 1,000. So if you're at 301, you're perfect. Nothing to see here, folks. You're good to go. Conversation's over. That's not hormone imbalance. On the other hand, if you're 301 or 350 and you feel horrible, you could actually have low testosterone for your body. So that's functional. Are you functioning well? That's just one example. I'll use thyroid. So we use TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. Typically the range is maybe 0.45 to 4.5. So if you're at 4.49, you're fine. It's good enough. But if you can't poop because you're constipated, you're always freezing cold, you're gaining weight and tired, maybe you actually do have some functionally, they call it subclinical hypothyroid. I've heard some of the people out there saying if it's less than a 10, you don't have to treat it. And the implication there is you don't have to treat it, meaning you're not going to die. But no one asked how the patient feels. Like, do you feel good? Do you feel optimal? So that's the big difference. One is, do you have a problem? The other is, are you optimal?
Okay, and so then this is something that people can be proactive with, or are you typically seeing people coming in that are just like, I'm not feeling well, and then you're taking looks at it?
All the above. So a lot of people just feel so lousy that at some point they're so frustrated and they just say, nobody figures out what's going on with me. I just don't feel good. And then the person says, well, what's wrong with you? And say, I don't know. And they're like, yeah, you're fine. So again, the model of conventional medicine is to say, what is wrong today? And if you can identify it, you have strep throat, that's easy. You have a heart attack, that's easy. Appendicitis, easy. All these acute problems are easily identifiable and treatable to some extent, depending on what it is. But the chronic things, whether or not my cholesterol is just haywire, my blood pressure's all over the place, or I'm sad all the time, that one's not so easily identifiable. I can't spell it out necessarily. Something's off. I don't feel good. So when people come in, when they find us, usually they're like, oh, wow, you're actually talking to me. This is great. And we talk about the family or happiness or going for a walk. And that's all vitally part of it. So, yeah, I guess I'd say that.
Okay. And then what are some common hormones that people may be lacking in? And then could you also list some that are not as common that we could, work on?
Sure. So that could be asked many different ways. And I guess what I would say is when we say, what are the common hormones? Insulin, thyroid, progesterone, testosterone, estradiol, a type of estrogen, cortisol. There's dozens upon dozens of them. Those are the big ones there. In general, conventional medicine, usually we say, we're just going to check thyroid. That one's pretty commonly checked. The rest are not. And we had a friend a couple of years ago. She was 52. She went in saying, oh, I feel tired and stuff. I wonder if I should check my hormones. And the person told her, oh, no, you're fine. You don't have to worry about that. You're too young. Like, wow, how how insulting is that? So that's just a quick list of the hormones that we generally check very often. Some of the symptoms, general symptoms just of hormones being off, would be fatigue, weight gain, especially around the midsection, the beer belly. Cold and heat intolerance, you're always cold, always hot, depression, whether it's anxiety, irritability, we have brain fog, sleep issues, whether it's menstrual problems, whatever that means, libido. Some people have vaginal dryness and soreness or erectile issues, bone loss. Like I can keep going.
Okay.
So
Then So then I guess I would tie into another question here where say, how do you separate normal life changes that people are experiencing, such as stress or any factors from an actual true hormone deficiency?
It's a good question. They're all great, Amy. So that's one frustration I have is when I meet a lot of people, they say, I was going to this other place, this hormone clinic, and I'm paraphrasing to make a little bit of a joke, but the other place said, do you have a heartbeat? Great, you're a great candidate. Come on in and we'll beef up your hormones. The first thing I ask is, should this person have normal hormones? If you're 60 years old, you should not have normal hormones. That would be abnormal. If you're 24 years old, you should have normal hormones. And I'm saying normal meaning optimal. Shouldn't say normal. But as an animal species, it's average to have a lot of the chronic things, blood pressure, cholesterol, all that stuff. But that's not normal. The only one that's really normal is the hormone stuff. So what we do is, first of all, we check it. So we do a pretty extensive lab panel to say, where's the starting point? And then depending on who it is, if it's that 24-year-old and their hormones are in the trash, you say, well, what could cause that? And you go back to the same pillars I always go back to. So food, movement, sleep, stress, sense of purpose. And you say, what are we missing? There's something off. Because I could just give that person hormones, but then their body is it's suffering from something. Now, if they're hitting around 40 years old or so, it's reasonable to consider that the hormones might start to drop. I still want to ask those other questions and find out, are they having the healthiest body that they can have to encourage the best balance? But then if it's lacking, then potentially we help with that and we prescribe things.
Okay. And then is this something typical where with age, you're just getting your traditional doctor's visits in annually that, physicians are checking up on these things? Or is this something that we coming in should be asking about?
So again, when you go in for those visits, the question is, what's wrong with you? And so if you go in for fatigue, they're going to say, well, maybe it's your low iron. True. Maybe it's anemia. Maybe it's your B vitamins. All those things are true. And that's why we check those things.
Right.
But it could also be emotional health and all the other things. When you go in for your wellness visit, they say, well, how old are you? All right, 40 years old. The standard lab panels, this is what you get. Nobody asked how you're feeling and what's leading up to that visit. So that's why if I'm checking a 17-year-old, I'm checking their hormones, not because I want to replace them, but because I want to verify objectively, are they balanced or not balanced? Because some people, this is tricky, some people have perfect labs. They really are. And they feel horrible. That's very complex. I had a woman once say, good God, I wish you told me I had cancer. I feel bad. But there was no evidence in her labs at all. So we had to keep on digging, and then we did find some things. So no, hormones are not part of a regular lab panel at all.
Okay, so if I'm coming in and I'm questioning, just I don't feel great, right? And this
Yep.
could be even more emotional, but it could be hormones.
Hmm.
So would you start with some other things before you go into the hormone therapy?
Well, for the therapy, heck yes. So
Okay.
therapy is when I'm changing things. So I want to do the assessment first. So the best treatment plan requires the best diagnosis. If I don't
Okay.
ask questions, then I'm not going to have the best diagnosis. So, and that's why my body is not so simple that I come in and I have one thing. No, no,
Mm,
no, I have billions of things. So we can measure some of them, but I can't measure all of them. And if I measure them and one thing is way off, man, I love that. Get excited. That I can address. But when they're all just a little bit, and then you compound that by a billion times, that's the equation of life.
mm,
So that's what makes it so challenging. So if we can ask more questions, we can get a more solid answer. So, yeah, I think that answers the
mhm.
question.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
rambler.
One thing that while you were talking about this, it just kind of popped in my mind is so say stress levels, right? And
Yep.
and we know this can affect our body in so many different ways. So say your stress is affecting, is it fair to say you could say your stress is affecting your hormones?
Yep. I tell
No.
everybody, I've been saying this a lot lately. I joke, but I'm serious at the same time. What is
Mhm.
the whole point of hormones? It's to have a healthy body and procreation. Very simply, that's what they're for. Healthy
Mm,
body and make more of me.
mm,
So if I'm unhealthy, unconsciously, subconsciously, the brain's like, let's not reproduce this one. So if I'm eating crap, if
mm,
I'm a jellyfish on the floor, if I never sleep, if I'm stressed out of my mind or have such despair in my life, it's pretty natural. The hormones will start to go down. Again, that 24-year-old, if they're struggling with this stuff, they don't need more hormones. They
mm.
need to address this stuff. So, sorry, I think I a little bit interrupted you.
No, no, you're
Okay.
you're good. You were not at all.
Okay. So,
Got
yeah, so
it.
stress definitely affects things and lack of sleep and all the other stuff.
Okay. And so then we would address some of those different factors probably first, and
Mhm.
then try doing the hormone replacement therapy should these adjustments
Should it be
not
appropriate? Yeah,
affect.
should it be appropriate? Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Well, it looks like we had a question here from a LinkedIn user.
Okay.
Says, if I need a hormone test, how can I do this at a cheap rate?
It's a good question. I like it. So,
Mhm.
you can go directly to a lab, but I can tell you as a quick example, if you go to LabCorp, just as an example, and you get a basic cholesterol lipid panel, it's about $74. That's how much you pay. If they bill your insurance, it's about $24. If they bill me as a direct primary care, they charge me $2. And I mark it up 10% so I don't lose fees. So I will charge you $2.20. It's amazing. So,
Yeah.
and that's why, first of all, you might want to find a direct primary care who does wholesale labs and passes along those savings. So, when I do a whole panel for men, it's about $35 for the hormones. Women, they do progesterone also, so it's about 40. That's not much. If you
Yeah.
do it yourself through some of these labs where you can get your own labs, it's probably $300-$400, something like that. So, yeah, direct primary care is a pretty darn good option.
Okay. And insurance will cover or no? Is this something you need referrals for?
Insurance can cover it. It depends if we have a diagnosis for each lab test.
Mm,
So, a lot of my patients in the end up saying, just put the whole panel on the cash wholesale price, and then they'll just pay it. I had a man, it's funny, I just saw him the other day, but a couple of years ago, we had our extensive panel, and he's like, put it on the insurance. And I said, that's fine with me, but we're going to try to justify everything. In the end, his insurance said, we don't pay for vitamin D no matter what.
oh,
So instead of his labs costing him $135 for the entire panel, that one test cost him $248. And I was like, oh, kind of a
interesting.
painful lesson. So,
Yeah.
um, but asking the question, like I said, like when you work with someone who offers wholesale pricing, that's pretty good. I could mark it up 100, well, probably 1,000%, and it would probably still be reasonable, but we just don't do that as a model. Some people do. So if you go talk to other people, like at say a hormone clinic, they might say, oh, your basic testosterone test is going to cost you $40.
Mm.
I think that's probably about $5.
Okay.
Yep,
All right.
in
So
my head.
it's affordable. And again, we're talking our health here, right? So
Yeah.
I find that valuable. I'm sure others do as well.
Hmm.
All right. Well, let me jump into the next question that we have here. So, are there any subtle signs that people often overlook?
Yes, but so the body works synergistically where everything works together. We don't have just one thyroid or one white blood cell. Everything works together. But to answer the question simply, little things like dry skin, constipation is huge. So many people are constipated, they don't even know it. They say, "Yeah, I go twice a week. It's pretty normal." No, it's not. Sleep is one. Decreasing memory. Um, one that I was thinking about the other day is emotional flatness. When you just feel like, kids come home with a new puppy and you're like, that's great. That that's not okay. That's weird. Um,
Yeah.
so that flatness, and then for our older population or not so old, osteopenia, osteoporosis, bone loss. That's hormones. Mhm.
Oh, interesting. All right. So then, what blood tests or lab markers are used to evaluate different hormone levels?
Okay. So again, for me, the way I like to do it, I don't like to do just the sex hormones. I like to kind of do the big picture. But
Hmm.
specifically with sex hormones, I'll just rattle some off. There's DHEA, which is kind of the intro to that. Pregnenolone's above that, but DHEA is a big one. It's a precursor, has its own jobs. And testosterone, there's total. It's also free. Free means available. So that was really important to me. From there, we have estradiol, a type of estrogen, E2. For women, we check progesterone. Along with the estradiol, we check an FSH, follicular stimulating hormone. That's the brain saying, I want more or less. We do sex hormone binding globulin. I call that the protein taxi driver for the sex hormones. And those are that's the start. That's the basic little core of sex hormones. But like I said, thyroid's part of that. White blood cells, the whole CBC is part of that. Insulin is a big part of it.
Mm.
So, yeah, hopefully I
Okay.
answered your question.
Yeah, and what are some of the symptoms? So, like, going back on some of those sexual hormones, you hear
Mhm.
some of those basic things, you hear them on the TV ads, but what are some things we can notice within ourselves where it's like, oh, this can be fixed with the hormone replacement therapy?
Yep. And before I answer that, I'll say I used to say work harder or work smarter, but now I try to say let's work harder and smarter, meaning
Yeah.
the individual has to get off their butt and go for a walk. They have to put food in their mouth. They have to get their sleep, get to bed early enough, work on their
Mm,
stress. That's the work harder side of things. The work smarter is how do we look underneath the hood, maybe get
mm,
some labs, and then go from there. Really generalizing, this is very simple, very general, but for thyroid, symptoms of that can be constipation versus diarrhea, cold versus hot all the time, weight gain, weight loss, fast heart rate, hair loss, all that kind of stuff, which everyone's like, yeah, I got that. For testosterone, having it or not can be energy, low energy, sex drive, muscle building, bone building versus fat building, brain clarity versus brain fog, sometimes less aches and pains. That's really the quick version there.
mm,
Estradiol, for women especially, so well, men too, it actually helps with elasticity, so that soft, supple skin versus older person dry paper skin. That's a
mm.
big one. For
Right.
women, it can be vaginal lubrication, vaginal health, meaning not atrophy, not pain, not frequent urinary tract infections, or at least a sensation of those.
Mm,
Um, if we do certain things with the levels, I said elasticity, so it can also help with cardiovascular and brain health by loosening up some of the blood vessels. And I'll just finish with progesterone. Sleep is a big one, and then also a sense
right.
of wellness. So they all work together, but that's kind of a quick overview.
Huh. All right. No, sounds good. I think I need to run in and just waters. All right. Well, let's see here. So, looking at this, how does short-term and long-term effects differ?
Okay. And the only reason why I would even think about those is if we see the short term, something's going on. If we see the long term, something has been going on, probably for a while. So
Okay.
short term are things like tired all the time. I'm not sleeping well, either soundly or I just can't stay asleep. Sometimes the hot cold thing, sometimes sex drive. These are symptoms that are live. They're going on today. The urinary issues I mentioned a minute ago, mood, those types of things.
Mm,
The longer ones are osteopenia, loss versus osteoporosis. Another fun little word, sarcopenia, muscle loss.
mm,
So people start getting thinner arms and legs and a bigger belly, like boom, there you go. Increased cholesterol, sometimes heart rate with thyroid goes up or down, fertility issues for our younger folks, and then I guess weight issues, especially like I said, that middle section, that tire, that's some metabolic dysfunction right there.
mm. Okay. Well, here, it looks like we have another listener, William Chavez. Thank you for jumping on. He asked, can lack of sleep mimic some of these side effects. So can we kind of dive in more into the lack of sleep?
Yeah, no, that's great. I love it. And that's why I said the pillars, because could eating a horrible diet make me feel fatigued and gain weight and have no muscle? Yes, yes. Sleep is one of those things where, if you think about it, if we sleep roughly 8 hours, that's a third of your life in bed doing nothing. You're not hunting and eating food. You're not protecting the tribe. You're not learning. You're not doing anything. You're sleeping. So as we evolved over a quarter million years, if it wasn't important, we wouldn't do it. So all animals sleep different amounts. For humans, about a third of your life. So in that time, that's when we work on building our memories, and we also work on our metabolics. That's when your stomach's, tries to finish up what it's been doing for the day. You make some poop, all that good stuff. Um, it's also where we settle things out, so we heal.
Mm,
So all of us have bopped our head at some point. So in a way, we've probably all had a concussion. Does that affect brain stuff, which is where the signal comes for all of the hormones and everything else? Yes. And that's why
mm,
they've done a lot of studies with combat veterans. They're all depressed and suicidal, and they just treat them for depression. Check their hormones, because if they're in the trash and you replace them, they feel better. We're solving the problem. So sleep affects everything. So I call it sleep and the middle one, sleep and rest.
right.
You need it. It's vital. Yes.
Right. Now, even thinking about that, back in the day, I used to even do some work overnights. So, do you have any knowledge or experience back on people who work these overnight shifts versus days and how that affects their
Sure.
bodies and their hormones?
Yeah, and it's not even just overnight. It's also the changing shifts. You might have Saturday and Sunday off, and you're awake during the day with
Mhm.
the kids and doing whatever, and then Monday night overnight. So just that changing of the circadian rhythm, and I could talk for an hour about this, but that affects things also, because the body says, "What the hell is she doing? She's funky. Something's going on. Don't reproduce." Boom, drops everything. So, and that's the shift work type stuff. There's a lot of studies on this. When people do the shift work stuff, they tend to grab for the fast food type things and eat the junky things
Mhm.
at work, and they're not going to the gym. So it's really a package deal.
Mm,
So the nighttime stuff, same thing with endurance athletes. A lot of endurance athletes, you think, wow, what a stud. They're running 100 miles, which is pretty impressive and awesome. But a
mm.
lot of times their hormones tend to get sapped. They tend to be a little on the low side because they're burning through it all.
Oh,
So yeah, I just think that's interesting. So there's so
oh,
many little nuances, which is why me as an individual, I need to be considered alone myself. I'm not an average.
okay. Okay. And actually this next question here actually really ties into what we were talking about, and you may have actually already answered it, but
Ooh.
can nutrition, exercise, and we've talked about sleep, or stress reduction meaningfully improve symptoms that people often attribute to low hormones?
So yes, and I think we touched upon it, but I'll say this.
Mm, mhm.
For some, so in general, yeah, yes, the answer is yes. And again, if it's that 24-year-old, I don't know why I keep saying 24, 32-year-old, whatever, if their hormones are off, that's not normal for the animal species. Something is out of balance.
Mhm.
Having said that, and this is why I spend a lot of time talking to my people, is if someone's 56 years old and they're super healthy, they're not going to have mega hormones. They're still going to have low hormones, which is normal. They're either their testicles or their ovaries. They've retired. They've moved on. Um, and they might need some external help if they
Right.
want that benefit. So sometimes what I'll say is, because some people are like, yeah, I know, I just need to eat even better. I'm only 80% on. I need to go to 90%. Sure, go for it. But the reality is sometimes if the hormones are really dragging appropriately, a normal
Mhm.
part of aging, then the answer is, well, it's like you dragging an anchor around. So, Amy, I tell you, if I said, here's a 25-pound anchor, drag it around, have fun going to the gym today, you're dragging it around for hours. You're like, screw it. I'm tired. I don't want to go. I just don't have the energy. Why, Amy? What's the problem? Just eat right and exercise. You're like, oh, I just feel so heavy, that heaviness of life. So
Right.
sometimes a person, when you help them to get metabolically balanced, sometimes with hormones, is they're like, I actually just feel a little bit better. Maybe I won't eat the Twinkies. Maybe I will go to the gym or go to the park and just spend time outside. That's a winning kind of balance. So it's not a race to health. It's a
Right.
slow walk, and it takes years to find balance. The challenge with that is the body keeps changing, the environment changes.
Mhm.
So anytime you find the perfect little balance, all of a sudden something changes, and you're like, I got to tweak this a little bit.
Right.
So yes, all those things can help. Sometimes the reality is you need some external help or not. It's not like you forced to do it.
Right.
So yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Now, so say for those of us who may be home and we have our parents or our grandparents living with us, and I remember that sleep cycle is so much different. Like they can be up all night.
Mhm.
And it's like, how do they function? But they do. They do. They're up all night and take naps throughout the day. Is this something where you'd say maybe hormones could help them in regulating that? Or is that just the way it goes as we age?
So the answer is both. No, for some people, so average sleep is called at 7 to 9 hours.
Okay.
And some people are at 9 and unrested. Some people are at 6, very well rested. So sleep quality is really important.
Hmm.
Part of aging, and I guess we should establish that. What is aging? And the answer is, yeah, at 52, my joints aren't the same as they were when I was 20. There is a fact. There is a difference. There's wear and tear. But all of the stuff we think about with aging almost all has to do with lifestyle choices, all the regular things I keep talking about, and low hormones. So your question's a really good one because for that person, maybe I need more information, but maybe it's appropriate that they try something. And if that helps them with their sleep cycle and the sleep architecture, the type of sleep, then okay, cool, we've got a win. You always got to weigh the risks and the benefits. On the other hand, maybe they're part cat and they just sleep little naps throughout the day and they're up all night playing with little toys. And I say that jokingly, we just got a little cat. But
Oh,
it's true. Some people do really well with very
yeah,
little sleep. However,
yeah.
most people, and I'm going to stereotype and say the guy's like, oh, I only need 4.5 hours of sleep and I grind it out all day long. Yeah, okay, and then they have a heart attack. So
Oh,
there's a kind of a part where you're kidding yourself.
right.
So we just have to keep all those things in mind.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Well, food for thought. I
Yep.
know working in healthcare, that was something that I was just like, how do these people do it? And
Hmm.
now my parents are there and they're up all night. I'm like, okay, I'm going to bed. I cannot function unless I get my 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah, wonderful.
All right. So let's jump on to my next question I have
Okay.
is how do you find a trustworthy provider who won't over prescribe?
Okay. I think with any issue you might have, probably the first clue is do they try to figure out why it's going on? So if I go in with high blood pressure and someone says, hey, you have high blood pressure, here, take this medicine to lower it. If they didn't ask me about my life and why it's high or when it's high or what makes it go up, what makes it go down, that, that's treating me like a number on a piece of paper. I don't necessarily like that. So if
Right.
I go into someone and I say, hey, I have low testosterone, they're like, great, here's a shot. Let me know if you have any questions. That's very limited. So I want them to ask about my modifiable lifestyle choices, those things. And they should also, this is called informed decision making. When I do this, people are like, wow, no one's ever talked to me like that before. I'm like, this is the minimum standard. What is the risk? What is the benefit? If I told you, Amy, take vitamin D, and you're like, why should I? That's good. Question me. And if I say, well, it's going to cost you money to pay for it, you have to put it in your mouth, and you hate taking supplements and whatever else, but you're going to have less risk of Alzheimer's, maybe heart stuff, your bones will be better, your hormones will be better. You're like, oh, well, that's a pretty good convincing argument. Take it.
Right.
I
Right.
encourage everyone to do that. If I say, hey, you should go for, I don't know, a chest x-ray, risk benefit, why should I do that? So you should demand that. And if they're like, I don't have time for this, you say, thank you, and you move on.
Move on. Yep. Find someone else.
Mhm.
Agreed. Agreed. Okay. So then, what should listeners watch for in their own health that tells them, yes, it's time to check my hormones?
Okay. Part of that question, I'm hearing it two ways. Part of it is saying, when is something broken that they need to go fixed? It's kind of late then, but that's fine. And that's some of those things we talked about: depression, fatigue, achiness, forgetfulness, all that business. Um, the other part is don't wait till then. It's like, when do you go in to have your engine replaced on your car? Well, when you're on the side of the road with smoke coming out of it. How about we just do some preventative maintenance? So, whatever age you are, like I said, I've checked my teens before. I don't have any teens anymore. They grew up. But yeah, I've checked them to see, are they balanced? And if they're out of balance, why? So I think everyone should have them done.
All right. All right. Well, we're wrapping up on our time. I would definitely like to close with just a few more thoughts from you. Anything you would like to add? And then lastly, how people can reach you and meet you for getting some hormone therapy and getting checked out.
Sure. So I guess my last thing, kind of on a other energy level or whatever, but I say this to people in the office. I know the story of you. It ends with dead. And people, if you say, I don't like that ending, I said, let me give you another one. Dead. No matter what. The thing we can influence is how we get there.
Okay.
So I might be dead this afternoon. And if I am, what am I going to do about it? Cry? Like, if that's it, that's it. So you have from now until dead to do stuff. And you're here for a reason. So you might as well get to know your family or your friends and enjoy it. Have some fun. Fun like when you were 3 or 4 years old. So that's what I would say, encourage people to go do. And then if they need to get in touch with us, the website's right there. And, we love doing this. It's fun. Dara's our nurse / my wife, and we double team a lot of things and put a lot of passion into it. So that's what I would say.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Adam. It's been a pleasure having
Thank
you
you.
on here. And again, I encourage everyone, jump in, come meet Adam, come meet Dara. They're wonderful people. And again, coming and meeting people who actually care about your health and well-being, so much different than being a number and on the books when you're going into other offices. I can tell you right now, New Med definitely lives that.
Ooh.
Um, so now our next episode is going to be on October